How's it going? So the topic of my story is going to be on my trip to McKinney, Texas. I was there on business purposes. My job here sent me to home office, Torchmark Corporations in McKinney. Pretty awesome, all paid, kind of fun, 7 days, lots of information that I will be using back here in New England. Now, I don't really want to talk too much about the trip in McKinney, Texas, but more so how I got home. So I was out there for the past 7 days. Weather was amazing, sunny skies, 80-degree weather. I'm sure a lot of you guys here in New England are probably thinking like, "Oh, I wish," right? But it was great. Pool every day. I think I got a tan. I don't know. I'm not the type of person to tan, but it all did have to come to an end. Just recently got back. So last day of this seminar, everyone was talking about their flights and whatnot, and making their way to the airport. We were all shuttled there by bus from home office on the last day. My flight was planned to leave at 6:30. Now, I've been traveling my entire life, something that I've just always done, whether it was from New Hampshire to California, Florida to California to Sweden, you name it. I've been there, been around the world. But this is the first time in Texas. Now, side note, funny thing, I was wicked excited to go to Texas, and the one thing that I was disappointed on was that I never saw a cowboy hat. Now, not being stereotypical or anything, but I didn't see a single cowboy, which is a little unfortunate. But either way, I've been traveling a lot, and especially over the last 2 or 3 years, flying pretty consistently on a monthly basis, and I've gotten pretty accustomed to the TSA. So it's your typical TSA type stuff. Take off your shoes, take off your belt, they check your bags, all because of 9/11, which I praise. But something new, for the first time I was in line where it was kind of an open but secluded space where you'd have to freely walk past a canine unit where they were checking bags. It's a new thing for me, which I was fine with. I'm not carrying anything suspicious, but that was definitely new for me. The guy was pretty cool about it, got through fine. Getting through TSA, I've almost got a routine down for it at this point on getting through there pretty efficiently and getting through to the other side. No problem. So I get through TSA about 5 o'clock, and I've only ever flown American Airlines. Now, I have an app on my cell phone for American Airlines specifically, and it's been very helpful to boarding. I have all my boarding passes right on the application. I don't need the paper or anything like that. It's been pretty awesome, and I obviously get a bunch of flyer miles for it. So something, after I got through TSA, I checked my American Airline application, and something kind of stood out to me that was different. Now, every time I've ever flown American Airlines, there's always been the gate number, the boarding time, and my seat. Well, when I went to check my application and my flight details, there was a line in the seat category. Now, I've never had an issue where my seat wasn't already designated for me well in advance. Now, I bought my tickets probably 2 or 3 months prior to the actual flight, so it was a little bit odd. First thing I did was I walked up to the stewardess, the clerk at the front desk where she checks your boarding passes before you get on the flight. I checked that around 6 o'clock. Now, when I got up to that stewardess and asked her, "Hey, why don't I have a seat?" And she said, "Oh, well, maybe we just have to select it for you. She typed my information into the computer, and to my surprise, she said, "We're sorry, this flight's been overbooked." And I was like, "What? Is this a joke?" Never heard this before. So I said, "Are you sure? Is there anything, that I can do? Maybe, sit in a different class? I need to get home. I've been in Texas 7 days. I want to go home. I want to see my kids. I miss my family, and I got work to do." She said, "Give me 1 minute. I'm going to check, and I'll get back to you. I'll call your name." So I went to the bathroom, came back, got a soda or something. And when I got back, I heard my name on the intercom, and I walked back up to her, and she says to me, "I'm really sorry for this, but we're going to have to put you on to the next flight." I mean, I'm a single guy traveling alone. It's kind of understandable that I would be the one selected to take the next flight, so I asked, "Okay, well, when's the next flight?" Checks her little computer thing there and tells me 8:30. Now, the original flight was 6:30, so 8:30 really wasn't that bad. And she said, because of the inconvenience, we're actually going to credit your flyer account for a $300 credit towards your next flight. At that point, I felt like I had won the lottery. It wasn't that big of a deal. So I said, "Okay, sure, why not? I'll take the credit and the next flight. Not a big deal. 2 hours. Okay. Give me some time to grab some food and get some homework done that I've been falling a bit behind on." So, got the new flight information. It updated right in my little application, and I was off. So, not a big deal. I went and got food, came back to the gate right around 8 o'clock. Now at this point in time, the sun's starting to go down in Dallas, Texas, and I mentioned to you guys that the weather there had been amazing the whole time I was there. There was some mention at the end of the conference before we went to the airport of rainstorms and thunderstorms, but I didn't really think anything of it because I was going to be on a plane for the next 5 hours. Not a big deal. But it was very noticeable that the clouds were starting to roll in. It was getting kind of dark, premature, and before you know it, it was raining. Now, I've never really had issues with rain while traveling. Granted, in New England, I've definitely had some delays due to snow and ice, but never rain in Dallas. So I didn't really think anything of it. I was sitting there just going away at some of my application journals, and all of a sudden the light that came from outside was not from a plane or from a car, but it was very, very bright and noticeable. What was it? Lightning. I looked over and oh my gosh. Everyone says that things are bigger in Texas, and that includes thunderstorms. Man, it was probably the coolest thing I had ever seen. One after another, it was just like fireworks of lightning storms. It was, to be quite honest, it was probably one of the coolest things I had experienced in Texas. So, not really paying attention to the logic, I was focusing more on this beautiful light show in the sky. To my surprise, I get a ding on my phone. What was that ding? It was actually Facebook. Facebook realized that I was in the Dallas airport, and also realized that there were going to be some delays. Well, I checked my American airline application, and lo and behold, that 8:30 time turned into 9 o'clock. It's like, okay, not a big deal. Half an hour isn't all that bad, even though we're now 2.5 hours past the original flight time. And I did some research, looked at it online, asked the stewardess at the front desk, and she actually mentioned to me that the plane that was supposed to be landing was making circles in the sky because that thunderstorm was right over the Dallas airport. So I was like, oh gosh, that doesn't sound too good. And then 9:30 turned into 10. Now 10 o'clock rolled around and the flight finally landed, The passengers did get off the plane. They were safe and sound, which is very good. And they did their thing, cleaned up the plane, and started boarding. Now, once we boarded, we all sat in our seats. We were excited, like, yay, we're finally able to go. There was a few other people who I didn't directly know, but I could tell were in a similar situation to me, like, oh, I want to just get home. So we're on the flight. They go through the safety procedures like they typically do, buckle your seat belt and keep your seat trays up and put your phone on airplane mode, the whole 9 yards. So we all did that because we were ready to go. Now, typically when a plane starts moving away from the docking station, it only takes about 15-20 minutes before you get your turn on the runway. Well, we made our way to the runway and we sat there. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Now we're looking at 10:30, 10:45, 11. People were starting to get anxious. What's going on? Why aren't we moving? Well, the ladies were actually going up and down the aisles, food, drinks, waiting. Obviously, this is a little bit more delayed than typical, and looking out the window is pretty obvious as to why we weren't taking off yet. At 11:15, the flight captain came on the intercom. Good evening, passengers. I'm sorry to inform you that Dallas Airport is actually shutting down due to a state of emergency. We will be returning to the docking station at this time. Click. That's it. Man, the sounds that came from the people around me, you would think that it was the end of the world. They were not happy. Neither was I. So, plane turned around, docked back up, and we got off. It's now 11:30. The one bright side to this is that the sushi bar was still open. So, went and got myself some sushi while I was waiting to figure out when I would be able to get home. Now at this point in time, I got my family members back home wondering where the heck I am, because 11:30 was when I was initially supposed to be landing in Boston. So I got on the phone with them, let them know that whole story, and they said, alright, well, keep us updated. Obviously my mom was kind of concerned, because she's always concerned when I'm traveling, but they were understandable. So talked to the stewardess, and basically they told me, unfortunately, there isn't going to be a time to fly until tomorrow. And the exact time tomorrow was to be determined. So, I spent my first night in an airport. I wasn't going to go to a hotel. I wasn't going to try and leave the airport because, one, I didn't know when the next flight was going to be, and two, my company had paid for all of the travel to and from the airport, and I didn't really have anywhere to go. So, the only thing I had to do was lay down on the floor next to the window, watching the lightning storms, because it was kind of awesome. But I made myself a little bed with my jacket and my backpack and the things in my suitcase. It was about midnight before I was able to shut my eyes, and it was kind of weird because, the sense of security really wasn't there. There's a lot of people stuck in the airport. You don't really know them all too well, and you have all of your personal belongings laying right next to you. So, I was able to close my eyes for a couple hours, but at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, the intercom goes off and says to the people who had to spend the night, please come up to the front desk to get your new flight tickets. Well, I waited in this nice long line and wasn't really too anxious at this point. I'm already well behind schedule. So when it was my turn, the stewardess clicks on her computer again. Hi, how's it going? Same one from the initial 6:30 switch to the 8:30 flight. She says to me, oh dear, I'm sorry for this. And I said, it's okay. When's the next available flight to Boston? Well, the next available flight was 7:30 a.m. I said, okay, that's gonna do. I'd like to get home as soon as possible, so get that flight booked up, get on with my day. Well, the rest of this is pretty smooth and straight going. Get on the flight at 7:30. A bunch of different people. Wasn't quite the same people that I had spent the night in the airport with, but some of them I could remember faces. I'm not really good with names, but 7:30 comes around. We get on the flight, and it takes off smoothly. Now, landing in Boston wasn't a big deal. Everything was good. The only issue was landing 24 hours later than expected. Parking in Boston is definitely not something I enjoy doing, especially if you're going to be traveling away from Boston. So I was driven into the Boston airport. I didn't park my car anywhere. I had my family members drop me off. So I'm landing in Boston around, I think it was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Everyone in my family was at work. A little bit of scheduling issues there, but when I landed in Boston, I actually had to wait until about 8 o'clock at night to actually have a ride home. I wasn't going to Uber or get a taxi because Boston to where I live in Hillsborough is about 2.5 hours. So, ended up spending another 4 or 5 hours in the Boston airport, which at this point in time I'm like, oh well, I'm used to it by now. So finally around 7:30 the following night, 25 hours after I was supposed to leave on my initial scheduled flight, did I finally see my sister's car come around and pull over, and I was on my way home. So that's the story. Moral to the story: free flight, getting home about 24 hours early. I don't really have the say in what happened there, but I do know that life throws things at you. The only thing you can do is make the best of it, right?